Hey guys, it's Vlad here. All right, so this is a live video that I wanted to go on. I'm sure some of you have seen some of the posts that I've been sharing, especially this week. And I guess the main thing for this live specifically, and I definitely have a feeling there's going to be more to come afterwards. I already have someone that definitely want to have a debate going on, which I have no problem at all with. I definitely want to make sure that there's a conversation about what's happening more than anything else. And I think that's really the main purpose behind my post more than anything is that I want people to talk about it. Think it's very, I think it's very dangerous when any effort to discuss what's currently happening, which actually affects not just millions of people in Canada, but like a huge amount of people around the world, is important. And anyone who tries to suppress any form of discussion is definitely an unfortunate thing. Um, Before I go in a little bit into explaining my perspective, my insight, and that's really what that is. It's my truth. I definitely want to give you a little bit of a context. Um, if you've been watching some of the posts and some of the comments that I've been sharing, um, more than anything, a lot of people try to discredit me personally more than anything else. Who am I to talk about it? Who am I to share anything? And not to like pat myself on the back or brag or anything, but I just want to create a little bit of a context that before sharing anything that I actually take a lot of time thinking about it. So like personally myself, I studied political science, I studied social science, economics, law here in Canada and in Moscow actually. I lived in 3 different countries in my life. I am 40 years old right now. I studied nutrition, I've studied fitness, I've been a health and wellness coach for the last 20 years, and I've consumed a ton of books and programs. And um, I'm definitely grateful for the opportunity to live in Canada. I'm grateful for the opportunity to even have a phone and be able to do this live, because I do realize a lot of people don't have that opportunity. So, and at the same time, I do realize that I actually have a platform. My personal platform, the way I look at it, is all the social influence I have in here on Instagram, and then personally people that I know. There's a platform, and especially in this time, I think people are starved for information, but they starve for information that might question the status quo, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's really about creating conversation and help people to at least understand that sometimes not everything is straightforward as people like to present it to you. So the first thing that I want to address is the virus is real. It's definitely not happening just out of imagination. We can see statistics on a daily basis, and again, thank God to technology that we can see the statistics on a daily basis. There are millions of people affected by this on a daily basis. There are over 150,000, I believe, so far that to be cause of death from this virus. And my sincere condolences to every single person that affected by this virus. The virus is real; it's affecting people, and it's very unfortunate. And for some of people who actually know me a little bit, I do think they understand that I come from compassion for most people that I interact on a daily basis. I do my best to come from other people's perspective and hold their viewpoint. And that's why, again, like it's really unfortunate and not necessarily surprising to me to see people just jump into conclusion, try to put me into just a box of someone that's just a crazy conspiracy theory, anti-vaxxer, whatever box people want to put it. The term people like to use right now, COVID idiot. So if you question anything about the COVID virus that's happening, you would immediately consider to be an idiot. And it's again, it's unfortunate that people like to be a very rude bully and just try to suppress any type of thinking that might be happening. I'm not saying that everything that being shared is truth. However, just take time to listen and understand. So I'll do my best to keep this relatively brief because I do want to give an opportunity for people to watch it without, giving up on it. So the other thing that I want to address right away, and again, this is just the first part. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of conversation going on, and I do want to have this conversation going on. Is people question my financial motives for sharing what I've shared. I mean, the reality of life for me personally, with what's happening right now, my personal life is probably the least affected with current lockdown that's happening comparing to a lot of other people. I'm still able to move around. I can work out at home. It's not something that I'm personally extremely affected. The only thing that I'm not setting any records on my deadlift at the gym, but it's okay. I can manage that. I mean, it's definitely not the reason why I'm sharing and why I actually oppose a strict lockdown measurements that's being put on us. Now, the other thing that some people like to make sense in the comments, we're not on lockdown. Well, there's different levels of lockdown, and then when actually our Mayor Tory actually uses the word lockdown in a briefing, then I guess there's some form of lockdown that's happening. The other part that people really like to put me in the box of, like I said, like an anti-vaxxer. I personally don't consider myself an anti-vaxxer, same way as I don't consider myself, for example, an anti-abortion person, right? But I can hold this, like the being pro-life and being for abortions in certain situations. Like I can hold those two opposing concepts in my brain, and I can think about it, I can discuss it, I can talk about it, and I can see how someone might be very strong in a position of being pro-life and anti-abortion and somebody not. Same way as I can understand someone coming from a place of being against any type of vaccines, and most of those people are actually the one that personally been affected by adverse effects from vaccines, and just understanding that there are those real people, and then that most of them have children with being affected. Like I know a lot of people currently joining me are parents, and I'm a parent myself, and God forbid anything happens because of vaccine to my child, I probably would lose my shit too. So I'm having some compassion to those people that have such a strong stand against any type of vaccination is helpful, just to have a dialogue, because unless we're actually going to live in a fascist dictatorship country, we still all going to live together. Like you will live together with people who have a very strong stand against any type of vaccination. And if you, for example, have a very strong stance of vaccination being broad and for everyone, it's very productive would be to have a dialogue in those two groups, so then people actually can have a discussion, have an understanding, voicing each other's concerns, and actually coming to a middle ground in understanding that we're all going to live together in a society. Canada is still a great country, for example. I mean, again, this is happening around the world, but I'll stick to Canada, and I'll talk a lot about Toronto because that's where I am personally. And people just need to understand that we need to have a dialogue. I mean, and jumping to any type of conclusion and trying to discredit specific source that somebody's using to share an opinion or perspective, and just even offering an alternative perspective, again, it doesn't help the whole situation. So that would be something else I want to kind of establish, and maybe I can elaborate later on that. The other thing that I want to address on a personal note, and then I go into more explanation and my perspective on what's happening, is people say, well, people like you that say that there should be no lockdown, then you definitely just go outside, lick all the surfaces and just be exposed to the virus. And then when you will need help from medical facilities, you should have a signature that, you deny any medical help from hospitals. Well, again, I understand that people don't know me personally. Most of those people that they make those comments, and some actually do. And again, I respect everybody's opinion. But just it's for me personally, I've been living in Canada for over 20 years. And the first time I actually applied for the OHIP card and got it was in 2011. So I've been living in Canada since 99, and my first OHIP card was in 2011. And that's just because I don't use the service. So if I'm able to have a healthy lifestyle and address whatever concerns I have, that's the case. And then it actually expired in 2016, and I only got the new one, updated one last year. And the only reason why I got this updated one is because I needed to travel to. For some people that might know, if you want to actually get a travel insurance, you actually have to have a valid OHIP card. And the other one that I got, the initial one, is because when I was getting Canadian passport, I needed to have as one of my IDs. So in any case, I mean, I actually don't use the service. I come from the place of the hospital. It should be the last place to go at the very, very extreme situations. And that's just my personal choice. So I can talk about, being against medical establishment because I do understand the risks that people face when they go to the hospital. Again, the statistic is actually very sad that I think it's about 30,000 people, that is 30,000 people die yearly in hospitals from medical mistakes. Just think about that number. I mean, that's crazy to me. So when someone tells me you should never question medical establishment, you should never question what's happening in the hospital or what the doctor does, I really have a different take on this. Like 30,000 people die because of the medical mistakes yearly in Canada should be a big warning sign to at least question what's been presented to you. So that would be in terms of that. Now, let's talk about, the other conspiracy theories that people like to talk about and put people down when they actually question that. So, there's a big debate right now about the World Health Organization. And if you really think about it, like even the current status of the virus that's happening, it's because the World Health Organization declared it as a worldwide pandemic. That's why a lot of governments were forced to take certain actions. So first of all, I want to address, I guess, the main part of this situation, that a lot of governments were actually put in a position, supposedly, where they couldn't even do anything else rather than just lock people down and force people to have these extreme measurements because the World Health Organization declared this specific virus to be a pandemic. Now, there's a lot of conversation happening, exactly how even the virus started. However, I really would encourage you to Google. It actually came out today that the Nobel laureate from France, the doctor that actually discovered the HIV virus, and I think he won a Nobel Prize in 2008, actually came out today with or maybe it was an interview even from a few days ago, but it's all in the media right now on the internet, that this virus was created by the scientists in the lab. So the official stance that this virus got created because some guy ate some bat soup is possibly not the truth. So now the surprising thing to most, but not surprising to me, that even this article is not in the mainstream media. It's on just some, actually there's a good website I just found right now. It's called corona24.news. That's where I found the article. I haven't looked at anything else on that website, so I don't know about the source. So I actually share a lot of things right now in terms of the information, like the interviews and whatnot. People are talking and discussing this current situation from sources that personally I would actually never even look in before. Again, some people that follow me for a while, like they know I don't support, I never supported Trump. I was always very vocal against, all the right-wing media pushing the agenda. However, if in the current situation I see there is a discussion that's going on in that source, I actually am watching those videos. I am listening to those people because I can't disconnect the emotion out of being something against in the broader spectrum and listen specifically for things that resonates with me and actually makes me question and makes me understand a little bit what's happening. So the WHO organization is definitely something to be considering. Is this really as serious as they're making it to be? Because they even change the stance a lot of times. Oh yeah, and the last thing that I want to bring up, because people really question that I'm only going to take the advice from medical professionals, and I only you shouldn't be talking about this. Um, the 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 director, whatever the position of the WHO person that's leading the whole thing, he's not a doctor himself. The Prime Minister of Canada is not a doctor, but fine, he's a Prime Minister. But what about the Health Minister of Canada? She's actually a graphic designer. Now, with all due respect, I've listened to some of the briefings she's done. She's an intelligent woman. I'm not bashing her at all. And she only was put in a position since January, so she's new in this position, and I get it. But if someone like that can be a minister of the whole Canada for health, I mean, I think I can at least discuss some of the things I want to discuss. So specifically with Toronto and what's happening here, it's unfortunate, I think, that the media and all the governmental briefings, and trust me, I watched for the last 4 weeks, the federal, the provincial, the municipal briefings, and it's very unfortunate that the majority of the conversation, and I do understand it needs to be discussed, that the majority of conversation is all about, how many people are dying, how many cases, and I do get it that needs to be discussed, but there's zero conversation that the rate of the mild cases is actually 96 to 98%. So that means out of the 100 people that actually do get the virus, 96 up to 98% are mild cases. Mild cases, guys. And obviously, depending on that ratio, it's basically 4 or 1 person would need to be hospitalized, and obviously there's a death rate about 1%. Now, a lot of people can jump on the numbers and say that the death rate is either more or it's maybe less. The point is, people are definitely dying and they're definitely at risk. And those people who are at risk are primarily in the long-term care homes. I mean, I don't know how the government couldn't see this happening. Like, it's a risk population, a high risk population with immune issues in the care homes. And, I understand different homes, different situations, but this is primarily the risk population. So if you're going to spend billions of dollars on giving money to people and you're forcing them sitting in a home, I think it would be much better resource to spend to actually make sure that those homes have a high paid or at least properly paid caregivers, and they don't have to work in a different locations. They can just work in one location and they can take care of people. But even today, like at briefings, the people being asked that why there are homes that forbid actual nurses to wear the protective gear, specifically in Ontario. So when someone makes a statement that the reason why there's a breakout in a care homes is because some nurse wasn't careful, I think that's, again, very short-sighted perspective. I mean, the government is definitely the one that's responsible for outbreaks in care homes. And why I even talk about it is because those people already isolated. You didn't have to shut down the economy and force healthy people sitting in a home when you have in a whole Canada, I believe, again, don't question me 100%, but I think it's about 400,000 people in care homes in Canada. I'll double check the study if I'm off, I apologize. But I mean, those are the people that are high risk people and have to be protected. And that's really the main thing about this whole situation of the quarantine. If you think about the quarantine, the word should be for the people that have the virus. Now, I understand there's 14 days, up to 14 days incubation period for the virus, and I get it, but we've been in a lockdown for 4 weeks already, and like primarily people that even had it don't have it anymore. My other issue with the whole current situation is the antibodies test that never discussed or barely discussed on the briefings, and I think this should be besides obviously isolating the cases that do have it going on, and obviously providing the healthcare to people that need the care to treat the severe cases of the virus. The main agenda for the government should be doing the antibodies test, so then you actually can see who already had the virus, who already recovered from the virus, and able to get back to their real life. Because the impact from the lockdown, whatever version of the lockdown you want to discuss, it's severe. And that's why I'm really talking about this, because again, I'm probably one of the least people personally affected by the lockdown. However, I am clear, very clear, that people are sitting at home, they're not being as active as they should be, they're consuming a lot of foods that they should not be, and there's definitely going to be an even higher spike in diet related, lifestyle related diseases, and ultimately death. So like the top three killers in the world are heart disease, cancer, and stroke, guys. Those are the top three killers in the world. Millions of people are dying from those three diseases, and they're diet related. Like that's just the fact of it. So when you're locking people down, and like I understand you're gonna close the gyms, fine, for the four weeks period or whatnot, but you even close in the parks where people, I know some people were too close or having picnics. So having enforcement officers making sure people don't have picnics. But I'm sorry, like when you're giving people tickets for sitting single by themselves on a bench, that's disgusting. Okay, when people, if you go to the China Park and you're wearing the gloves and you're doing anything else that you want to do, and you're being respectful with other people and you're working out, I mean, and you looked right now as a criminal, that's unacceptable. Like, I mean, the people want to be outside and they want to work out. And yes, people tell me, well, nobody's stopping you from going outside. I can hear in the message that I personally not stop, but I do understand people who are fearful and they really don't want to break any rules. They're actually going to sit inside. And most of those people who have, mental challenges and dealing with a lot of depression and whatnot, out of fear, they're going to sit at home just because, everyone said sit at home and only go shopping once a week or even less. Like, I'm sorry, like people need to be outside on a fresh air, because guess what? Like when you're on a fresh air, your immune system is better, you feel better, the virus doesn't even spread as well on a fresh air than in the closed surfaces, in the closed, areas and whatnot, like in the buildings. So when you don't even provide the foundation for people to stay healthy, I think that's very unfortunate. The other really big issue that I'm having with the government briefings that I haven't even heard a single person talking about is, like, if this virus is very severe, has a very severe case attack on lungs, well, guess what? Which population is at high risk of getting this virus and actually developing serious conditions are the smokers. Not even single time in the last 4 weeks, not at any level of the government, that the federal, the provincial, the municipal, was discussed that anyone who's smoking, you're at a high risk of getting this, and you actually should either quit or you should do your best to decrease the habit, because you're putting yourself and everybody else at risk. And by the way, here are the governmental programs that we're actually going to help you quit smoking, because we understand that your health is important to us, and you smoking is a severe risk factor for getting this virus. Not even once in the last 4 weeks, guys. And trust me, like I watched, it's almost like a full-time job keeping up on all the briefings, because there's briefings from the ministers and then there's other briefings. But anyway, so that would be the other thing that I definitely want to address that people are not talking about. So where I'm trying to go with all of this is, my stand is very simple. More than anything, people need to discuss. And then, I'm sorry, we've had enough. It's 4 weeks of this quarantine of healthy people. Like, if you're healthy, you should not be in the quarantine. And I'm sorry, if you needed a pandemic to teach you how to wash your hands and don't sneeze on people, then you are the problem. And I understand there's a lot of crazy people out there that, sneezing on other people on purpose and spitting on other stuff on purpose. And I'm sorry, we live in a society where that was going on even before. Like, people in Toronto know we had a shed man last month or 2 months ago, the time goes by. We had a person that actually throwing feces on people in downtown Toronto like 2 months ago, whatever was going on. Like we have crazy people going on all the time, and you do your best to avoid those situations or manage it the best way you can when you interact with somebody like that. But at the end of the day, locking down people who are healthy, who are able to be productive members of society, is not the way they should be conducting. The other thing that I definitely want to address, and that's why I'm actually sharing the things about vaccination and the stand about mandatory vaccination, that Like I'm listening very carefully to the government officials speaking and the words that they're using. Like this week, every single day except for today, the Prime Minister Trudeau briefing, he every single time he said we're not going back to normal life until we have a vaccination. He said on Monday, he said on Tuesday, he said on Wednesday, he said on Thursday. Just today he didn't mention that. To me, that's alarming. I'm sorry. Every single day you're going to tell me we're not going to go back to normal life until there's a vaccine. That's unacceptable. And I don't get flu vaccines. And I know there's a ton of people that don't get them. Now, if you're in a risk population, if you have compromised immune system, and if you really think getting a vaccine is the right way for you to do it, no problem. Again, it's all about personal choice. But I'm looking at these warning signs, and I am concerned, and that's why I'm voicing my discussion here and having this discussion with people that it can happen. And when people say, oh, the censorship will never happen in Canada, like I shared an article today from National Post that already talking about how the Liberal government is actually working on possibly taking away some of the posts, people discussing about coronavirus, if it's not aligned with the agenda of the government. And at the same time, the Liberal government is trying to pass, all the expenditure without Parliament coming together and discussing those. So when there's no check and balances in a democratic country like Canada, that should be a concern for many. Because again, we live here and this is our rights and freedoms. And by the way, today, it's an anniversary of Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, so maybe it's even almost iconic that I'm going to start this series of live conversation about freedoms in Canada on the anniversary of Charter's Rights and Freedoms in Canada. That's a cool thing, I think, that's happening. So, I mean, I know some people are going to watch this and they say, oh, just talking about it and this is all my reasons, and that's fine. Like I have no problem people coming on all my posts and voicing their comments. I have not deleted a single comment from anyone, even they were very rude, obnoxious, whatever. If someone chose to personally themselves block me and that's how they went out of that conversation, that's their prerogative. I don't take anybody off, unless they're going to be continually rude to other people in the conversation. That's possibly when, after warning them, I would take them off. But to me, I don't care. Like, you can be mean to me all you want. It's the only thing that it's doing, it's actually fueling my fire to continue talking about this. So, that's what happens. That's, people talking about conspiracy theory about, 5G, antennas and whatnot. I personally haven't done that much research. However, I did watch the David Icke video that got taken off completely from YouTube, and the guy that did the interview, Brian Rose, on LondonReal.tv, his whole account on LinkedIn got banned and all that stuff. Like, when that stuff happens, it just raises an eyebrow and actually validates the stance that person is taking a lot more. So what I was going to say is whether the 5G antennas are causing this virus or not, I'm not discussing it at all. But I'm going to watch that video. I'm going to think it over. I'm going to come up with some sort of my own personal insight. But when that actually gets censorship and taken away, to me, that validates that even more, But at the same time, I personally made a choice probably 18 years ago, if not more, not to have a microwave. I personally think microwave does cause radiation issues, even if it's just tiny bit. I don't need to have a microwave. I warm up stuff on the stove, or I warm it up in the oven under the broiler or whatever. So I don't have a microwave for those reasons, and that's just my choice. But if the 5G's antennas are everywhere and is actually causing some health damage, that's something to be at least discussed, if nothing else. Like, can we have a discussion about it? Can we do some trials about it? Can we have some validation and scientific proof that it's not causing any issues? And on that note, to kind of tie up to the previous point that, if vaccines are so harmless or the risks from them are so small, how come pharmaceutical government spends millions and millions of dollars lobbying the government to limit how much compensation a person can get in a court. Just think about it. If the compensation was not a concern because the cases should be very small and not many people being affected by it, then why those companies spend millions and millions of dollars limiting how much money someone can get if they actually get damaged and can prove it in the court. It's not just like you just show up to the company, damage with a vaccine, give me the money. No, you got to go to the court. And again, they don't make it easy for you to win a case like that in the court. And the companies actually spend millions of dollars making sure that the compensation amount is so tiny. Is that just a part of the business plan of those companies? Just think about it. Again, just trying to have a conversation more than anything. Not everything is black and white. Like the other video that I shared on my post, I really guys recommend for you to all watch outofshadows.org. It's on my page. It's like a second or third post from today. You can see it in just 1 week of that video being released. It already has almost 8 million views. And that's just on that main one. There's other YouTube channels that copied the movie. And again, like, just watch it. I'm not asking you to agree to every single thing that's shared on that video, but it's really, just something for you to see and discuss and think about it, because that's just what's happening. It's out there. So it's not really that black and white. The mainstream media is the last place for things to see. And yes, unfortunately, at this time, it's actual very odd sources to most, where you actually can find some people talking about it. Like Joe Rogan show is tremendous because I love Joe. Like I've been following him since he was on the sitcom of a radio sitcom. Like if you want to see how Joe looked when he was really young, you can watch a City Radio, whatever the sitcom was called. So anyway, I know Joe from like 20 plus years ago, whatever it was. But on his show, long story short, he discusses everybody's stance. He has no problem having opposing views and having a debate and having a conversation. And a lot of people try to put him in a box. Like, are you conservative? Are you a liberal? And then he says, like, he never voted conservative before, but right now he can support Biden, and I can see that. Like, I would never support Trump before, but in the current climate, where he's actually the one questioning the World Health Organization stance in all of this, and he's questioning Bill Gates and mandatory vaccination and all of this, and he actually doing his best to open the economy, whatever hidden and whatever reasons he might have. I'm just looking at the basic information that this virus around the world have not killed millions of people. And I understand people are going to say to me that, it's because of the lockdown in most places that's the case. However, and I know it's only a few countries, but thank God for a few countries that opted out of the mandatory lockdown. Sweden is being one of them. I can share other countries that didn't do a lockdown, but Sweden is very close social economical way to Canada, and that's where they don't have a lockdown. And in the whole time that the virus has been going on in Europe, which is 2 months already or more, 3 months in Europe that has been happening. That's officially, unofficially, probably even from before. They are at 1,400 deaths. And that's in a country of zero lockdown. The only limitation they have is gathering of less than 50 people. And I can definitely understand that. However, the bars are open, the restaurants are open, the schools are open, the gyms are open, people able to go in most of their regular life. And they only have 1,500 deaths from this case. Again, one too many, I understand. However, people don't need to really look at the other side of the equation when you have a lockdown and how many people will be suffering from the lockdown, the mental issues, the suicides, all the health issues that people are going to be having because of sitting at home and not being able to go outside, and immune suppression that's happening right now. Immune system is suppressed by even stress. So all the media fears that's been saying there, so many cases and then so many deaths. And I understand people need to be informed, but can you at least at the same time mention 96 to 98% mild cases? Like not even once, unless a journalist asked today in Toronto, for example, like what about how actually better are we doing? Like we're actually doing really good in Canada. Like there's only in the whole country, the deaths are at, what is it? Anyway, I'm going to open the page up. But it's very small. And yes, people say, well, it's because the government took the measurements. Well, not really, because 50% of the cases are in long care homes where unfortunately the outbreaks actually did happen because of the failure of the government. So no, it's not because of the great way of the government work. It's those cases, most of them would have been happening anyway because the long-term care homes are not properly protected, especially in the pandemic. I'll make a very simple example of that. That in Ontario specifically, the outbreak happened 2 weeks after already the Emergency Act by the Doug Ford. So they were not even protecting it then. Then the outbreak actually is happening in long-term care homes. Only 2 weeks after that, they finally passed in a law to make sure that the caregivers don't work in multiple locations. They only work in one. And still, it's a week from today that actually going to be implemented. I mean, that's a joke. If you're talking about at-risk population that needs to be protected and you have to have a taken care of caregivers financially, that they don't have to work in the multiple locations, you're asking for trouble right away. But at the same time, we're going to force the healthy people that can be outside, making the economy work, contributing to the society. We're going to force you to sit at home and give you $2,000. Don't worry about it. Let me go outside. You can keep the money. But if you're forcing me to be inside, I'll take the money. And that's how I look at it. And by the way, again, in my 21 years living in Canada, and I want to state that only just because I know people will jump on me saying like you want to take advantage of the situation. In 20 plus years living in Canada, not even one time I applied for the welfare or unemployment, not even once. Because I'm okay, I can go on and make my own income. And I choose to live modestly. I just rent an apartment. I don't own the car. I don't have a lavish dinners. I barely use Uber just unless I go to the airport with other people. Otherwise, I go to the airport by myself on a transit. Like, it's just my choice. So don't try to question my financial, motives and all of that. Like, you just don't know me, even if you think you do. But in any case, and I don't want to rant too much on a personal level. I want to keep it on track. So, I mean, again, I'll have a debate with my friend Oleg. I know he's excited to do a debate together. We might do it tomorrow. I'll have to check his schedule. I'm sure he's very busy sitting at home and commenting, but it's all good, bro. I have no problem. We can do a debate tomorrow. We can discuss. I don't want to jump to assumptions and conclusions, what you didn't like or you liked about my talk right now. But at the end of the day, if nothing else, please be compassionate to other people's viewpoints. Understand that the view of the world is different from every single person. And we need to be respectful. We need to understand that we're still going to live together in one society. We need to figure out a way how to live together. And that's really the main purpose of me doing this live, because, people like to put other people down, and I can handle it. I know other people having a tough time too. And a lot of people don't even get involved because they definitely cannot manage when people are mean to them. And it's unfortunate when some people really, rather than have a normal conversation and debate, they like to do what they do, which is fine. It's at the end of the day, it shows more about the people than anything else. So in summary, I want to say that the virus is real. The governmental measures is a joke on many levels. I do have a respect for the government officials who are in a position which is, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I understand, for example, Doug Ford. I never supported Doug Ford. However, he's doing his best with what he has going on. But I think he's influenced, unfortunately, by people who should not be presenting him inflated data. Like, again, I'll just make another simple example how unacceptable it is to create fear in the society, like the model that was presented for Ontario specifically in the beginning of this lockdown, and that's why he actually did the lockdown, is because he was shown the data that by locking all the healthy people down and limiting all the economic activity in province of Ontario, we would still have 80,000 cases in Ontario, and we would still have at best 1,500 people die in Ontario, up to 3,000, and that's with the measurement of the lockdown. Well, guess what? Not even close. Not even close. But again, if you're a politician, if you're in charge of 14.5 million people and you presented such a data, I understand that he took the measurements that he did. Do I agree with that? No, but I understand it. Now, at the same time, it's been for weeks. So I'm glad that they actually pushed the models, the people whatever created the model, to actually make a new model on Monday. And I truly hope, based on the new model and actually how good we are doing in terms of how many total cases and how many people are dying and percentages of all those, we're actually doing great. We are doing great. This is a virus, it's real, people are being affected, but it's 96 up to 98% mild cases. What does a mild case mean? It means you don't most likely even go into the hospital for it. I'll make another simple example. Those same people that influenced Doug Ford's decision said that we're going to need in April up to 1,200 ICU beds, 100%. Like, it's so bad, it's going to be horrible. 1,200 ICU beds needed. Guess how many ICU beds are in use today? 200. Are you joking me? 6 times they're going to make a mistake? I can understand if they said 1,200 and maybe it's at 1,000, maybe it's at 800. But when you're blowing out things out of proportion and you're creating fear and scaring people out of their minds, it's irresponsible. I think those people should be taking responsibility for that. And it's really unfortunate. So most cases are happening in a lot of cases are happening in the care homes, which would have been happening anywhere, whether you would sit at home as a healthy person or not. So no, I would definitely disagree that the reasons the numbers are so good, and they are, and thank God, I don't wish for more numbers at all, but it would have been almost irrelative to the current measurements being taken. That is my stand, and I'm sure we can debate this a little bit more with Oleg tomorrow whenever he's available. And it's been for weeks, and I think it's time for people to start really pushing the governments to opening things up. And I really think it's time, specifically for Toronto, which is very concerning to me. Right before coming on here, I was supposed to start this at 4, but I actually started much later, and I apologize. I almost did like what Trudeau said he's going to come out at 11, but came out later. Unfortunately, I don't have a cottage view of the door or whatnot, but anyway, it's a side joke. But I listened to Mayor Tory briefing right before coming on here, and it's very concerning when he actually talks about 3 months lockdown. Are you joking me? Like, what do you mean 3 months lockdown? No, not acceptable. And again, I understand he's taking advice from the public chief officer of Toronto, Dr. Davila, and I'm sorry, with all due respect, that person doesn't look like she's been outside too much even before this pandemic. So I think I'm just going to end this a little bit and maybe say a couple more things after. But the main thing that I'm going to say is I personally take advice from a person that I would trade places or bodies with. In other words, if someone doesn't look like I want to be in their shoes, economically wise, or I don't want social economically wise, or they don't look like I want to be in their body physically wise, I never take advice from those people. Why would I want to take advice from someone that does not represent the point that they're trying to make? So if you want to be healthy, I don't think you should be following Dr. Davila's advice. I'm sorry. She doesn't look like a healthy person to me. Maybe that's rude, me saying that, but when someone in a briefing saying that she's talking to the lawyers to see how much power she has to lock down the city of Toronto, and that did happen. I watched the briefing. To me, right there, and that was in the beginning of this joke, to me, that was already a huge red flag that a health official of the city of Toronto going to discuss with lawyers how much power she has to penalize people for sitting on benches outside in the parks. I'm sorry, that's definitely not what I'm going to take quietly. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to voice my opinion. I'm going to voice my perspective. And I'm going to continue doing this because someone got to do it. And I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only person that's had enough of this. I know I'm not the only person that thinks that this is blown way out of proportion. Again, the virus is real. People are being affected. A lot of people in the hospital have to deal with that. And I'm sorry. And I definitely think those people need to be compensated. It's a total joke that a caregiver making a minimum wage and forced to work part-time in multiple locations so they wouldn't be considered full-time and get benefits. That is the state of healthcare and caregivers, at least in Ontario. And it's unacceptable that they now passed a law for Ontario that those people finally will be paid $2,500 a month. Are you kidding me? It's a total joke and disgrace. And again, I have a support and respect for Doug Ford right now dealing with all of this. But I was always opposing him cutting the healthcare costs and cutting the education costs. And again, if nothing else, the positive thing that's coming out of all of this, that money is going to the healthcare. The money is, and regulation, hopefully permanent, not temporary. That's the other concern I have, that a lot of positive that's actually can come out of this emergency act and the lockdown or whatever are only temporary measurements for this specific time. I think it should be 100% permanent, that the caregivers are paid properly and they only work at one location and they have the benefits, and that's just what's supposed to happen. And then the same thing, like the education cost, cut to the cost of education that was happening under Doug Ford was a joke. And at least now, I'm so happy there's like millions of iPads going to kids in Ontario already loaded with software that actually can learn an education. So there are positive happening because of the Emergency Act and lockdown. And that's great. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to talk about it. And I hope if nothing else, those are the benefits that's coming out of unnecessary lockdown and Emergency Act response to this. So that's it. I think, again, I don't want to make it too long, whatever it's been already. But again, I think it's definitely a part one. And happy anniversary to Charters of Rights and Freedom in Canada. Let's stay strong and let's stay healthy. And I'm just going to finish with watch your language, guys. Like, stay safe. I understand people want to be safe, but we're not in a war zone. We don't have explosions happening or like anything else. So even the word stay safe. No, stay healthy. If nothing else, in this time, the hashtag and used on all the people's pictures shouldn't be stay home. It should be stay healthy. Because when you are healthy, you're able to manage. And I'm not even going to go into the discussion about, how can you treat the virus or whatever. I'm not going to go there at all. But it should be stay healthy. Because when you're healthy, even if you are exposed to this, well, guess what? 96 to 98% mild cases. And guess what? If you're healthy, you're part of that percentage. And your symptoms are mild or not existent. Or even if it's serious, you're still able to overcome it. Okay? So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everyone who's going to watch it later. I definitely encourage any type of comments under this. Feel free to share 100% what you believe to be true. Don't allow people to bully you. Don't allow people to put you down and try to discredit when you actually share something that you're truly passionate and care about. And with love and gratitude, Vlad signing out. Love you guys. Stay healthy.